Okay, here we are again, guys. What is up? This is DDP. I have finally gotten all of this sorted out. I apologize for the kind of false start a little bit earlier. Let me see if I can get the latest here. I have not yet seen anything confirming whether or not Luka Doncic is going to play in this game. I saw he was listed as questionable. I know that like Dennis Smith Jr. is out, and I believe they have another key player out as well for the Mavericks. So a lot going on here. I'm going to try while we're on the show to get you these updates. And I'm going to kind of hash back over some of the stuff I talked about earlier. Talked 15 minutes, but the stream was lagging because I was trying to do a car side review basically. And not good. So here we go. Dirk will not play tonight. Dennis Smith Jr. has been upgraded to doubtful. Luka Doncic remains questionable. And that's where the team stands right now before their game with Portland later tonight. So some updates there for you. Obviously, that hurts the Mavericks a lot if Luka can't go. Although I do think they won the one game he missed before at home against the Clippers, but that was the Dennis Smith Jr. game with the block at the end. What up, says? Let's see here. Yes, so that's where everything's at in that regard right now. Interesting stuff there, but let's kind of run it back a little bit, talking about some of the stuff I was trying to talk about earlier in the stream, the previous stream, I should say, for Mavs Fast Break. So I was talking earlier, specifically, I mentioned Harrison Barnes' contract for next year. I mentioned that he was set to, I said 20 million. I knew that I was underselling it a little bit, but it looks like instead Harrison Barnes is set to make $25,102,513 next year, the last year of his contract. In 2020, he will then be an unrestricted free agent. In case you're wondering, the cap hit, were we to release him, it's still that full 25 million. And yeah, dead cap looks like all but $2. I don't know how that works, but whatever. So yes, we are tied to Harrison Barnes if he opts in. I imagine he will. So even with the newfound kind of tension that's been supposed between him and Mark Cuban, which for the record, I don't think that there is a lot of tension there, but it's still something of note. Oh yeah, Rangers Camp, I'm going to roll your next episode as well. That's still in my plans. It's just been crazy with the holidays and stuff, and my computer running multiple updates apparently. But let's see here. So let me rehash those Cuban comments here. So here's Mark Cuban talking about specifically the AAU comment. So here's Cuban's comment, and then I got the graphics for that. If we took our best kids and 7 years before they are McDonald's All-American, we sent them over to Slovenia to get an education, the league would be 1,000 times better. They just learn how to play basketball while our guys learn how to taunt and put together mixtapes. That's via Euro Hoops. Not great in its brevity. I would like to hear like an extended quote because I feel like there's something there, more to it, some context that we are perhaps lacking. Because you can shorten something to a soundbite and it sounds way worse than it probably is in context. But nevertheless, it is a comment that at value for what you see there can be easily misconstrued. Again, I don't think it comes from a place of racism by any means. I think it just comes from a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? Insensitive place, I guess, because it's like while he's trying to kind of build up Luka and talk about how, hey, players over there, not only are they getting better in-game competition, but they're also getting the benefit of learning how to play more fundamentally sound and things like that. It's just different. We do have free education. That is a benefit. We have that for public schools. We don't have that for college level for sure. But to me, I look at it and I'm thinking it's not. I think it came out worse than he intended. I wanted to point out as well, Kobe Bryant in 2015 talked about this a little bit as well. Now, this is, again, an old article straight from the mouth of a player that grew up playing in Europe and became a star in the NBA. Kobe rips AAU. Europe players are more skillful. That's all the way back in 2015, I believe. So that's an interesting article that just kind of flies by, and we look at it this way. Let me see here. Let me give you, here's Harrison Barnes' comment after Cuban's statement. As a statement, I don't agree with it. As a joke, I don't find it funny. And frankly, I think it doesn't reflect what makes the NBA special. The great thing about our league is that players come from all over the world. We are raised in every background imaginable and bring unique perspectives because of it. We should celebrate that. We bring those perspectives on each other, on the issues in our communities, and we aren't afraid to learn from and share those perspectives. That's our strength. So really interesting kind of clap back, if you will, from Harrison Barnes on that. I don't know really what to make of it. I think I think Cuban's comment came off a bit insensitive and a little bit more harshly than he wanted it to. I think in the process of trying to kind of build up Luka, he unintentionally kind of slammed some of his own guys. But again, as I said earlier, I grew up playing AAU basketball. So did any. And through that experience, I can see both sides. I see what Cuban is saying because a lot of those AAU teams we played against, they were fantastic athletically, but you did definitely have situations where it was just a conglomeration of guys going one-on-one and just trying to put together. Like I saw more than a handful of occasions where you would have people in the audience or whatever, the crowd, trying to film the game specifically, and if their kid wasn't in the game, they were setting the camera aside. Like I understand what he's saying, and there's nothing wrong with that. For the record, I don't care. It's just one of those things where I get what Cuban is saying. Is it's kind of become its whole culture thing, which you do you. I don't care, but I think that Cuban looks at it as they're not as fundamentally sound in a lot of cases. They aren't as cohesive of teams, and it kind of feels like a step up sometimes from street ball. I think that's maybe the root of what he's trying to get, but even if that is what he's going for, I don't think he answered the question correctly necessarily, because it came across kind of like a slap in the face to guys that did grow up in that culture, like Harrison Barnes, for instance. So something to take note of. Let's see here. Glass says he ain't getting 25 mil anywhere else. Exactly, for Harrison Barnes. So he's going to be in here next year, and unless the Mavericks can trade him, they're certainly not cutting him and eating $25 million in dead cap. So yeah, you're going to have Harrison Barnes unless they find a way to trade him as part of a deal. Cuban always has no filter since 2000. He can't speak right. Yeah, he's not as bad these days as he used to be, but he still has a tendency to put his foot in his mouth. I mean, last year he got us in trouble with the league for talking about tanking publicly on Dr. J's podcast, so it happens. I don't think he's racist whatsoever. He's narrow-minded. Fair point. You don't have to destroy someone to build someone else up. I agree, William. David West said the same thing. Kobe played AAU basketball, and his daughter plays AAU as well. Yeah, again, it's an old comment from Kobe in 2015. I think that my point wasn't to say, well, hey, Kobe agrees with Mark, therefore Mark's correct. I'm not trying to say that at all. What I'm trying to say is Mark's not the first person to make this point, and he's not the first prominent person to make this point. In fact, Kobe is a much more prominent person than Mark to make a point like that, unless you look at it through the perspective of Mark's influence as an owner and kind of the perception of that whole debate. That's different. I didn't see anything offensive in Mark's comments. I just took it as he says college is very star-driven and European basketball is very much on the fundamentals and learning your role. Yeah, and I think I tend to agree with that assessment as well, with that as well, Dennis, so for sure. Let's see. I think it's an overreaction by Barnes unless Barnes is feeling a certain way about the fact that Luka is a better basketball player. I don't think that Barnes is upset with like his role or his place on this team. I don't think it's like that where he's like feeling salty and so now he's like lashing out in other unrelated areas. I don't think that's what's happening, but I do understand kind of the general feeling of frustration he took from it, because it is something that can cut to the bone for certain guys, I guess. So, I mean, he clearly, I think he's trying to be inclusive and saying, hey, yeah, what they do is great. Luka is great. That's cool. But don't trash your guys that came up in this culture. You have a lot of talent on this team that made it to the very pinnacle league-wise in the world. Appreciate that, respect that. And I understand that. I don't disagree with anything Barnes said either, honestly. Always been an awkward guy. Talking about Cuban, yes, sir. And lately, we've seen that Barnes wants to play OKC Westbrook style. Barnes has been struggling lately for sure. So the team is on a 5-game losing skid now. In fact, I don't think they've won since the watch party we did at Mexico, which guys missed a good Mavs game apparently. But yeah, so the team hasn't won. They started with a horrible loss to Phoenix. They've since had losses as well to the Warriors, the Clippers. Let's see, what's another? Why am I blanking on another one they had? They had another really, really bad loss as far as the opponent. But Sacramento, there you go. I mean, Sacramento record-wise isn't awful. It's about what Dallas has been. But I don't think Sacramento's that great of a team, honestly, especially being that it was a home game and it snapped your 11-game home win streak. That really sucked. But you got to find ways to work around it, work through it, and all of that. And you just do what you can with it. Let me see here. There we go. Chat's back. But yes, it's one of those things for Dallas that they're on this 5-game skid, and that's awful. That sucks. We want that to improve. They have been still competitive in these games. They're just not executing late, and God knows that those road woes continue. Their only 2 wins on the road this year are at Chicago, who is trash this year. Although they did beat Oklahoma City in Chicago earlier. And Oklahoma City just a few games ago was like the 1 seed in the West. And they also beat Houston, beat the pants off Houston in Houston, who I think at the time had like 1 or 2 home wins. Or maybe they were even still looking for it back then. It was so early in the season, I honestly don't remember. But the point is that it was a Houston team without Chris Paul. And other than that, it's been ugly. 2 losses to Phoenix, who's trash. And they just haven't figured it out on the road. And their late game execution has been spotty. I know Luka's banged up with the hip. He's still, last I checked, questionable for tonight's game. Let me see. I'm going to double check that as well, just see if anything new has come out just since I started going live about 15 minutes ago. Probably not, but you never know. Let's see here. While I'm pulling this up. Luka still listed as questionable. This is literally just came out. Luka still listed as questionable, says Mark Followell, due to a right hip contusion suffered last night. Dirk is out. And that's the only most recent updates we've got, other than Dennis Smith Jr. being upgraded to doubtful. Which, is that really upgraded? I guess he maybe went from out to doubtful. I thought for some reason he was questionable, which means doubtful to me would be a step back. Let's see. They will trade him, Barnes, this year. Someone can use him. Here, okay, so this was another thing I talked about in the show earlier. I said you have to reconcile something. If your mentality is, hey, Harrison Barnes has really been struggling, as was pointed out in the stream earlier. He went 0 for 8 from 3 against Golden State. That's trash. He was throwing up bricks. We know how that works. And he's a black hole. He doesn't average a lot of assists. I want to say he has a 1.1 assists average this year, and that's not good enough, but he's never been asked to be a playmaker for other guys. He was asked the 2 previous seasons for Dallas, first time he wasn't the 4th option on a team, to be the scorer, specifically the ISO scorer. So now we can't be like, hey, we need you to do this, we need you to be this for 2 years. He's actually pretty good at it, even though he's in a rut right now. And then be like, oh, he doesn't get enough assists. What trash. You know what I mean? Like, you can't build a guy up and say, be this, be this, be this. You are an ISO scorer. And then when he's suddenly struggling to distribute the ball or not be just an ISO scorer because you have better guys on the team like Luka now, you can't then be like, ugh, how dare you not distribute the ball? Man, you've been training me for 2 years to be the ISO end-all be-all of this offense, the leading scorer. And I've done that. It's just, you have to understand some of these transitions take time. And when you've built that up as not being so much of a distributor, it's hard to flip a switch and suddenly go and like average 5-6 assists a game just because you're not looking for your own shot. It's different. So just something to consider there. As it regards to Dennis Smith, I know he's out, obviously, well, doubtful for tonight. I'm really hopeful that people will look at where the team is at and basically just kind of acknowledge that he is pretty important to this team as far as what he can bring to the table and the dynamic that's lost with him out right now. it hurts them having him out for sure. And that's not to say they can't win without him, but what I was saying earlier, I got sidetracked a little bit. So I said you have to reconcile something, and that's either Harrison Barnes. Okay, if you want him gone, if you want to trade him this year, first of all, if you got to do that, fine. But you have to figure out a way to say, okay, we don't have anything to elevate that's as good or better than him in his place, and we don't really have a solid idea of what we could trade for to get something of equal value back. So it's like, okay, you have to either acknowledge we're keeping him and dealing with it and hoping he can figure it out and Rick can figure it out, or we're shipping him out and now we're kind of giving up on this idea of playoffs this year, which they're not going to do. But if you lose Harrison Barnes, he is your best ISO scorer. Luka is great. There's no doubt. Luka has the potential to be phenomenal. I don't know about necessarily all-time great yet. I always get really, really hesitant to say that just because you never know. But Luka has just a crazy high ceiling. But right now he's a rookie, and Harrison Barnes is your best ISO scorer. He's just in a really bad rough patch. So I'm reluctant to say definitively that, like, okay, yeah, ship Barnes out, but it's going to help us for the playoffs. That's not really practical, I don't think. You have to be willing to sacrifice one or the other. Either keep trying to make it work, because this franchise loves Harrison Barnes. They view him, as I've said time and time again, their own marketing campaign before the season even proved it. They view him as the Michael Finley to Dennis Smith Jr. and Luka Doncic's Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki. So it is what it is. Let's see here. What up, Rock? Armin, what's good? See some new, maybe not new faces in here, but faces I don't see a whole lot. Let's see. What up from Slovenia? What's good, man? I do love when NBA teams playing more as a team. Warriors, Spurs. I agree. Absolutely. No, it's good. And if you look at the Mavericks 2011 championship, that team had phenomenal ball movement. And Dirk was the one superstar, but everyone else, you had a lot of really good, a lot of good ball movement, a lot of good knockdown shooters. And that was just, it made them special in a way that now a lot of other teams are kind of replicating. And I don't mean that it's like, oh, we were the trendsetter. I mean that we were able to still be toward the front end of this kind of new boom with that. I think the Spurs were more so pushing that at the time than Dallas was, at least as far as getting there first. I'm not worried about Barnes being a black hole. I'm saying it's the only way we get anything for him. We'll see, but I highly doubt they even throw out his name in a discussion for a trade unless another team calls them like, hey, we want Barnes and this is what we're willing to offer. Unless it's something that really grabs their attention, I doubt they even discuss it. It's difficult trying on one hand to incorporate Dirk and at the same time trying to have chemistry with the second team while making the playoffs. Too many agendas. That's a fair point, William. As I was saying earlier, I know there's a lot of frustration right now with Dirk. He came in and they've been immediately on a 5-game losing streak. He looks incredibly slow and not necessarily uncoordinated, just awkward out there. But he's in his 21st season. He's a 7-footer in his 40s now. Of course, he's going to be slow and immobile and awkward. But every season, even when Dirk has had a full training camp and no injuries or anything like that, it takes him time to ramp up a little bit. And even in this case, even against the Warriors, there was a time he had a post-up on the block and he commanded a double team. Like, as long as he's been in the league, people still respect his shot. He still has a gravity about his presence that means he can be effective. Last year, he averaged 12 points a game in the starting lineup. And I still think if you give him a little bit of patience, a little bit of time to work his way into form, into shape, he's not going to give you 12, obviously, off the bench. But he will have games where he can help you a lot just off pick and pop. I mean, it is something that you can do. As far as your point about too many juggling of priorities and agendas, that's a fair point, and that might end up proving to be true. But I think Dirk has done so much for this team. He deserves, even if it means not making the playoffs, because we're here so much earlier than we thought we'd be in terms of contending back for the playoffs, I think you just ride it out. I mean, Dirk honestly is such a cool, not selfish person. He might even say if it's like all-star break and it's just absolutely not working, he might even be like, Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call it now, which that would be heartbreaking if it happened that way. But Dirk's always gonna put the team over himself. I think that right now you just got to understand there's still a very real chance that he is ready and he can make more of an impact as games go on. He's 5 games back. It always takes more time for him to knock off the rust for that, especially coming off of an off-season ankle surgery. This year is lost, I say with a broken heart, but if we can parlay a draft pick for him or 2, let's do it. I think you're still talking about Barnes there. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, I don't think they're going to do it, but we'll see what develops. There's a long time even just before the draft, or not draft, the trade deadline. That's what I was looking for. Barnes, besides Doncic, is our best scorer. Yes. So when he has a bad shooting game, we can't tell him to stop shooting. Also, yes. I also don't understand why so much criticism. He's not KD. He is Harrison Barnes. I agree absolutely. He was your leading scorer the last 2 years. He's your second leading scorer this year. And he's been very good for them in some of these games. He's just in a rough patch right now. And I understand when a guy's 0 for 8, you don't want him to keep jacking up threes. But, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you try and shoot your way out of it. And your mentality at times is like, I can't be afraid of any shot. Even if I'm 0 for 5 on 3, if I have the look, I can't be afraid to take it, even if I've missed 8 straight or whatever. So I think that's maybe the mode you sometimes get pulled into, where you're like, oh, it's right here. It's a good shot. I know I haven't hit it, but it's right there, and it's hard to ignore sometimes. I mean, even as a player, I've experienced that. So draft pick for Barnes is definitely worth it. Next year's draft class being so deep. Depends for me on what team that trade is with and where that means we might end up picking. And, it would still allow you to keep a first-round pick, presumably, but we'll see. I don't know. Let's see. But still, if he's not making Luka better, Luka's making Barnes better. Luka is making a lot of his teammates, if not all of them, better, and that's good. Barnes is, however, a very solid ISO scorer, which we don't really have on this team right now. So that's the role he can play for us. That and the experienced veteran, even at still 26 or 27 years old, he can still bring some real value in that regard. That I think there's a place for him right now. I've said for a while, I don't know if he has a place beyond this contract, but for the here and now, I think he has a role and a lot he can offer these young guys. Rangers King, what's up? Barnes and West / DJ for Porter and Mahimi. By the way, is Harrison Barnes really our best ISO scorer? Luka's also an ISO scorer, to be honest. Maybe that is looking more off reputation, but I would say definitely the most seasoned ISO scorer we have. Luka is a very good ISO scorer, but I think Barnes is at least comparable for now. If he's not better, he's at least comparable. Even, setting aside this rough streak, there's definitely been games where he has helped keep us in, and a lot of it has just been his ability to go isolation and make things happen. Go one-on-one and make things happen. You can't ask Harrison to be some kind of playmaker. He can't be that. He doesn't see the game in full color. Agreed. DMJ needs to be the shooting guard, and Luka needs to run the point. Rick Carlisle, no way will do that this year, but trust it will happen soon. Would be interesting. We've seen a little bit of point Luka. In its first game, it was very exciting and very intriguing. In its second game, it got the hell kicked out of it in New Orleans, but that might have just been a fluke game anyway, where you kind of like when we beat the Utah Jazz by 50 in Dallas, you kind of just throw it out as like not indicative of the rest of everything else. And so it's hard to get a read on what the point Luka lineup looks like. They haven't run it as much as I think some people want. I like Barnes as a man, as a player. Oh, as a man. As a player, he's holding us back. As a man, he's fantastic. He is absolutely a perfect representation you would want of your city as far as his character and community service and all of that. Yeah, I remember when you had the Dallas police officer shooting. It was like the week he was coming into Dallas is like right when that happened. So in my mind, I like have an association there where I just remember him stepping in and seeing, this really hard time the city was going through and just immediately stepping in and filling that role and looking like, he looked like the elder statesman, almost like representative of the city, even though he was just walking in and seeing it for the team he had just signed with. And it was just like, wow, okay. Like that really impressed me how he handled all of that. Dirk in this stage is not even an NBA player. He would be coming off the bench in Slovenia League. He literally can't move. Yeah, again, we roll it out. We see how long it takes him. Maybe he gets things going and he can be more serviceable. He still commands attention. His presence, his shot is still good. It's just a matter of how can you accommodate his deficiencies defensively and his mobility. And that's going to be really hard. He might be a guy that plays 12 minutes a game at best at this point. It's possible. And he'll make it, if it's that bad the whole season, I don't think Dirk's the kind of guy that would just ride it out for the sake of riding it out. He might literally just say, you know what? This might be it for me. And that's going to suck if it happens that way. I want to see him, to whatever degree he can, right off of the sunset, because I understand Luka's like this amazing prospect, this potential all-time prospect that we have, and that's awesome. I love Luka. I love all of that. But I also look over here at Dirk, and I see 21 years of loyalty, hustle, respect, the tens of millions of dollars in his career. I think I saw it charted somewhere where it was like $87 million or something in discounts he gave the team over just the last 10 years or whatever, as far as trying to help them be competitive by not demanding max contracts. So that's what I look at. That's what I fondly look at. And he delivered the team, the city, its only NBA championship. And so I've got nothing but love and admiration for Dirk. And even if it is a less than graceful right off into the sunset at this point, I'm not going to push him out the door. I'm not. That's just me. I know some fans are a little more impatient in that regard, or maybe they're more newer fans or something, and that of the team, that's cool too. I'm just saying, like, as Luka is held up for some, Dirk has been held up for us. Except we already have 21 years with Dirk and that history, so it's just a different kind of feel. Man, y'all are some downers. I'm trying to be positive. Let's see here. Scroll back up a little bit. I know how Dirk is not so much in the limelight, but can we admit this is his farewell tour and franchises banking on the seats can fail? Yes, absolutely. I've literally been saying since I started really talking Mavericks on this channel, this will be Dirk's final run. I've said it the whole time. I think it, even before he stepped foot on the court this year, when he wasn't ready for the start of the season, I was like, more evidence. And I've said before as well, I think it might be more of a novelty when he's able to get out there on the floor. I don't think he is ready, I don't think he's going to be consistent. I don't think you're going to get 60 games out of Dirk. I just don't. I think you're going to get something like 40, low 40s maybe. It'll be something where he plays a few games, he misses a couple games. He plays, like, that's just the reality of the situation. They're going to have to manage him like that. What bothers me most about this Dallas season is DeAndre Jordan's lack of consistent effort on defense. Nothing else. If he really gave a shit, he would be so much better. Interesting point on that. That is actually something I want to visit real quick. So I saw a great, I screen capped it on my phone. I don't have it available on my computer, but I'll read it here. So this was a very good point, I thought, although there is some nuance to it. A point made regarding DeAndre Jordan and kind of this perception of him. Let me see. Where? No. Aha, found it. Okay. So here's the comment here as it pertains to DeAndre Jordan and another recent Mavs big man. No joke, this is the tweet. No joke, it's an embarrassment that the Mavs ostracize Nerlens Noel for his work ethic and then continue to let DeAndre play terrible defense so he can pad his rebounding numbers. Now that's a very interesting thing, and then he adds to that. Anyway, the Mavs have other defensive issues, but the double standard at play here, especially for a dude that's likely trying to get paid for another team next year, is dumb. So that That's a really interesting, nuanced conversation. And as I've said countless times, my biggest problem with DeAndre Jordan is the inconsistent effort. He'll go for every rebound, even fighting his own teammates for those rebounds, and that's, whatever. He's alpha dog in that regard. Cool, you do you. But when it comes to contesting in a pick and roll, stepping up and putting a hand up to contest an open jump shot, even from the free throw line sometimes, when it comes to helping off of your man crashing down to protect the rim, you'll just see him stand flat-footed and not even lift an arm. Like, I've shared some of these videos on the Facebook page, and I think maybe Instagram as well. Maybe not Instagram, maybe it was just Facebook. But it's really, really troubling, some of these possessions where you're just like, bro, what are you doing? You're getting paid $22 million to be our rebounder and rim protector. You're doing half of the equation. And Nerlens Noel, for those who remember, after he turned down a 4-year, $70 million offer from the Mavericks after they acquired him at the trade deadline the previous year, he screwed himself financially because he wound up on a veteran minimum deal in Oklahoma City to be the backup center as he tries to rebuild his value, but he's never going to see a deal like that again. He's too limited. He has no offensive game. Kind of a beanpole as far as his size, but very athletic, good shot blocker and rebounder. His problems in Dallas, as this gentleman points out, inconsistent effort, not the hardest practicer, the work ethic, if you will, and just general, he would kind of he'd go headhunting for shot blocks because he knows those are what raises his value as far as free agency, and so he wouldn't stick with defensive assignments. So in his case, you could actually argue he was being over-aggressive as opposed to DeAndre Jordan standing flat-footed. So interesting there. The nuance in that conversation is, as I mentioned, he kind of, by turning down every offer from the Mavericks, including 4 for $70, and then being like, no, I'm going to bank on myself. I'm going to make $4 million this year, which is less than he had made the previous year, by the way. That's what I'm going to roll with, and that's what we're going to do. I feel like that's where a lot of that problem started, where the Mavericks then were like, okay, any way you fall short, we're going to let you know about it, though. You want to bank on yourself? Fine, but we're going to make you earn it. Whereas DeAndre Jordan, 1-year deal, $22 million. It's one thing with Nerlens Noel making $4 million to make an example out of him like they did. It's another when you're paying a guy $22 million to do that. And when he's your biggest free agent signing, one of the biggest ever, arguably as far as name value, the biggest they've gotten. So you look at that, and it's completely different. You can't weigh the two. You can't say, hey, we just got our primo free agent, and now we're going to bench him for a little bit because we don't like his work ethic. You can't do that. You can't. But that said, I don't know how DeAndre Jordan watches the tape each week with a straight face seeing his effort on some of these plays. I really don't. He brings a rebounding thing that we have so desperately needed for a while. And when he wants to try, he brings a shot blocking element that we have tremendously needed as well since Tyson Chandler. I would take 2011 Tyson Chandler over DeAndre Jordan 8 or 9 times out of 10 at least. I mean, even if we're talking like 2015 DeAndre, which we were trying to get the last time around, just because Tyson will give you everything in his heart and soul in any given game. Whereas DeAndre Jordan, I think it's not always there. He's very inconsistent on his levels of effort. And I think even though athletically he is a much higher ceiling than Tyson, I just don't think you get that same commitment from him in leadership role. Even though his teammates love his personality and, you see him goofing with Luka, with JJ Barea and all that. Like before the Hawks game, him and Dwight Powell and some of the other guys pretending to kind of jump and beat up JJ Barea, and then Barea kind of jokingly like jumping up and kind of like punching at him a little bit as well. Luka stealing his phone the other day and posting on the camera roll taking like 1 million selfies. That was funny as well. Let me see, do I have that on here? I feel like I might have that image on the computer I can call. I try always loading some of these things just so I can quickly call them up whenever the show is rolling, but I don't have that quickly on call. Don't worry about it. But his teammates love him, that's cool, but I still feel like there's a lot to be desired. I saw people complain about the last shot Barnes took yesterday. It actually felt like a perfect shot for Barnes, and I was surprised it didn't go in. I think it's outcome-based, really. It was a good open shot. It was. Some downers. I'm not poo-pooing Barnes. I'm just saying when Luka passes, he tries to get other shots. Barnes does not pass to get any others involved. I think that's pretty fair. But again, I think there's part of that where it's kind of like his programming. He's been told for 2 years, you're an ISO guy, create your own shot. You have to lead us in scoring. And now that someone else is here and he doesn't have that need as much, you can't really just flip a switch and go and be a selfless player in quite the same way, in a way where you're the one creating and your assist numbers are better than 1.1 assists per game. Luka's a little bit of a genius, man. You can't compare him to Barnes when it comes to basketball and specifically not passing. Yeah, I agree. My issue with Barnes is this. At the end of the game, he opts to take a step back three. That's not his shot. His shot was a pull-up three, catch and shoot, drive the lane, which is open to him. Okay. Barnes is how old? 26, 27? Something like that. Let's see. Oop. I think I just lost where I was in the scroll. Oh, no, there it is. ISO scorer is driven in and drawn a foul. Yes, yes, yes. All right. I'm going to start skimming here because I want to make sure I'm caught up. Yeah, I've covered some of these comments here. I've already answered some of them, so I'll keep rolling. As a GM said in Sacktown, there is no ceiling on him. Are we talking about Luka? Heard a rumor that Carlisle's frustrated with Luka lately because he is not allowing the offense to run through Barnes. I don't know if that's true, but it's what I heard. I haven't heard anything to that nature. Oh, hey, Salute can't catch him. What's up? Yeah, I haven't heard anything like that, but if that's the case, that's a bummer. Oh, hey, you get the cool animation on the screen. That's what's up. Let's see here. Yeah, I haven't heard anything to that point that he's frustrated with Luka not running the offense through Barnes. If he thinks the offense should run through Barnes, that's kind of asinine, honestly, because Barnes isn't a guy you draw up plays for. He's an ISO scorer, and Luka is a distributor. So it makes all the sense in the world to run it through Luka, very little to run through Barnes. Sometimes you can stay too long, Wizards Jordan. Talking about Dirk. Wizards Jordan still was quite solid, but yeah, I get the point you're making. Let's see. Pass him and stealing rebounds. All right, keep skimming here a little bit. Thank Jesus Noel did not take that 4-year deal. I agree. Tyson Chandler is a fighter unlike DeAndre. We didn't appreciate Tyson Chandler. That was an issue. Tyson Chandler, I think the fans absolutely adored Tyson Chandler. I think the problem came in the fact that both times he came into Dallas, it was on an expiring deal where he came in the offseason with the last year on his deal. The lockout happened after the Mavs won the title. Mark looked at it and said, okay, this is literally the first year in his career he has stayed healthy. He had been so injury prone throughout his career prior to this year. There's no doubt he was crucial to what we did, but now because of the way the CBA changed, okay, now we want to go out and we want to try and do this rebuild where we build this superstar team where we get these big name, these big fish. That was what he started thinking. And we don't know how much money we're going to have, so the value now because of the title, Tyson's going to cost too much, so we're just going to let him go. And so they did a sign and trade, sent him to New York. Tyson was upset about that, but he also understood this is my one real shot at getting big dollar value. Totally valid, totally agree. And he earned it. He goes on and gets an all-star appearance, Defensive Player of the Year as well. I think that first year with New York, I mean, he was legit. He was absolutely legit. And then the next time we brought him back from the Knicks, then we had him for the year. That team did not work out. That team got derailed by the Rondo trade. And then after that, it's like, oh, okay, now we're looking at Tyson and thinking, now age is kind of starting to play a factor. And we're not as close team-wise as we thought we were. Okay, we think we can get DeAndre Jordan. We're going to go hard after DeAndre Jordan. First time they pass him up, going after Dwight Howard. And Darren Williams, there you go. I was somehow getting stuck up on that name. Went hard after those two guys, and it didn't work out. This time they came back around, and they were like, okay, now we're going to go hard after DeAndre Jordan. Jordan snubbed us, and Tyson Chandler just kind of sat there like the Kermit the Frog meme, sipping on sweet tea, just like Sucks for you, because at that point he had already shipped his ass to Phoenix. But I hate it. I mean, Tyson despises our franchise as far as the front office. I think he loves the fans. He loves a lot of his old teammates, obviously. But, yeah, he got burned twice by Mark Cuban and Donnie, and I don't think he would ever consider coming back. The reason DJ is so buddy-buddy with Luka is because he knows Luka is a star now. Interesting point. Makes me sick seeing DJ give advice to Luka. Feel like Barnes could hit any game-winning shot as long as it's in rhythm and open enough if it was. I mean, he's hit game winners before, for sure. Again, salute Kent as I catch up to your donation here. Thanks for the donation to help grow the nation, as Law Nation would say. Let's see here. Can't compare it when it's a game winner. There are no perfect shots, just 50-50 shots oftentimes. I don't want him to shoot it when there's a full shot clock and stuff. Gotcha. I bet you if you asked 100 people right now, oh, you're talking with the Mavs 0, second shot 50-50, Luka Barnes, tell me who it wins. Fair point. So I think I'm caught up on the comments here. So now I start running back some of this stuff. So we got the Portland Trail Blazers tonight. This will be an interesting game for Dallas. The road trip continues. Dallas has to figure out how to make this turn around because, holy crap. I mean, even with as clustered as the records are in the Western Conference, you cannot afford to be stuck in this kind of... I mean, if you can't win on the road, you can't make it regardless. Even as good as you've been at home, I think you have 3 losses at home now. You still can't afford that. You have to find a way to get it done. Here's a quote for those wondering as well from Draymond Green after the game the other night, talking about Luka. That dude good. Yeah, he got it. He gonna be a problem. He already a problem. I have to read the quote as it's said. So that's the phonetic way we came across. Steph Curry also talking about Luka after the game. He's found a way to impose his will most nights. It's going to be good to see him develop into a star. So very interesting there. The love, support Luka continues to get around the league. This is in large part why I said he could be the first guy. Because Dirk, as great as he is, great as he was never able to bring in free agents. He never created that buzz. I think Luka can bring that buzz. Now, I did also anticipate Dennis Smith being more of that because he was kind of the hot thing last year until late in the year when you had Donovan Mitchell really burst out and when you had Jason Tatum burst out. But until then, Dennis Smith was the hot thing last year that everybody was talking about. LeBron and Wade, and anytime they'd go somewhere, the other team would have their coach or star player talking about him. And so I was hoping he could build on that this year, but between ankle and wrist injuries and him struggling with his new role and playing off the ball, it just hasn't materialized in that way, unfortunately. Let's see here. Yes, we have fallen below 500. I did love that from Draymond. Yeah, I hate Draymond Green generally, but at the same time, I mean, whatever. He's given props. I'm going to roll with it. Freedom Roar, what's good? I saw you up there earlier. Sorry if I didn't shout you out earlier. Green making Luka fly into the kid. Yeah, that was kind of a crazy thing. Green fouls Luka, really just kind of shoves him into a kid with snazzy suspenders sitting courtside. Luka kind of crashes into the kid a little hard. Kind of scary moment. I think that's the play Luka actually got hurt onto with the hip contusion. Luka kind of slowly gets up, checks on the kid for a moment, makes sure he's good. And then after the game, he actually gave the kid his signed jersey, which I thought was an awesome thing to do. Man, Luka, it's hard to say enough good things about him. Not just is he an incredible player, but he's just this fun, outgoing guy as well. Like I said earlier, stealing DeAndre Jordan's phone and taking like 1 million selfies on his photo reel or whatever you want to call that. And it's just a fun kind of thing. And then DeAndre posts like the snapshot showing all the different Luka selfies, just kind of like saying like, oh God, you should just go get a modeling gig already. And Luka just kind of playing it off like, oh, who is that pretty guy or whatever. It's just good-natured fun with Luka. Like it's so difficult to dislike him, I think. And I don't know how anyone would unless they just have their own rookie and they have their own narrative they want to back, whether that's the Jalen Jackson people, whether that's the DeAndre Ayton people. I know the Suns fans are salty and bickering a lot. I saw them trying to minimize Luka's badassness by saying he's got 1 double-double on the year. DeAndre Ayton's got 15. Okay, yeah. Luka's numbers are all better across the board beyond that. I mean, not across the board, like literally every stat. But you look at the overall resume and what he's building, what he's doing, what his role is, all better. And on a much better team, no less. So, it is what it is. Let's see here. You don't get a damn thing from him, less he believes. LeBron dropped Luka's name in his list of 8 players he wants to play with. Yeah, I did see that. That's cool. But LeBron's locked down for like 4 or 5 years in LA, so LeBron's not going anywhere. And we're not losing Luka. We're not giving up Luka for anything. I would trade just about anything before I traded Luka. But yeah, that is cool though that Luka got that respect, and it drives me crazy still how many people will say Luka Doncic. Like, I don't know if they're trying to be like a play on words and be like kind of cheeky about it. Like, oh, sick, man. That dude's game is so sick. Like, I don't know if that's that or if they just think that's how it's pronounced. It drives me crazy. Doncic. It's not that hard. They need to avoid silly turnovers for starters. Talking about the Mavericks and how they can get a win tonight, get back on the winning track. I agree. Don't you want the secondary player alongside Luka to be able to shoot threes on the perimeter really good? I don't see Dennis Smith Jr. ever reaching that level. Dennis Smith Jr. is actually much improved from the three-point line this year. I think even though he trailed off a little, I mean, he was shooting at one point like 40%. I think right now he's somewhere around 36, 37%, which is still pretty solid. And he's not shooting many of them lately because it's his shooting wrist that's injured. That's why he's been missing games, because his shooting wrist is injured. And so I feel like he can grow in that way. And if you're talking about him being a three-point shooter, I think he can do that. I think he can be a serviceable three-point shooter. And I think he's got the explosiveness to still be a slasher once he learns how to kind of play off the ball in the way like Devin Harris has, for example. Once he learns how to cut, make all these kind of great cuts to the basket and everything, once he gets that part of his basketball IQ, I think Dennis Smith can be very, very, very good. I don't know about all-star good, but certainly a Jason Terry to Dirk's, well, I just kind of said it. Jason Terry to Dirk, but on steroids. Otto Porter is a terrible contract. He's not a great contract, but they do have the financial ability to take it on. So there's speculation about like a Wes Matthews trade involving Wes Matthews and a second rounder from Dallas for Tim Hardaway Jr. I like Hardaway Jr. is another laughable contract, but I do like the prospect of being able to bring in a Tim Hardaway Jr. just from the scoring aspect he brings to this team. Would very much like to add a player like that, and I think that's kind of a realistic barometer for a quality guy you could get back as far as the player in exchange for Wes Matthews and his deal. Again, I don't think it's happening. I think it's just rumor and speculation, but I would certainly be willing to listen to that. He may have put him in the All-Star game with that name drop, talking about LeBron. Potentially, he's certainly putting the spotlight on him, which is great. Luka looks mature on the court, but off the court, he is still a really, really big kid. And that's part of what his charm is, honestly. I mean, that's one thing I love about him. And Dirk's kind of talked about that too, how on the court, he conducts himself like a 10-year pro, but off the court, he's still just like a goofy kid. Like, it's kind of cool. As long as he's, not sitting over there making fart jokes when he's eventually 30 years old or something. I don't know. Maybe people will find it charming even then or something. But right now, 19 years old, it's refreshing energy, I'm sure, in the locker room. Oh my God, that hurt my ears. Indeed, it's Don Cheech, like Cheech and Chong. Yeah. Let's see here. Think about that, Mavs fans. We went from Dirk to Luka. That's going to be 40 years. Hell yeah. Yeah, man. It's a good way to look at it. My last name is Halvadzik. If I played in the NBA, they would pronounce it Halvadik. All right. Gotcha. I always liked this is way throwback that shows my age, I guess, a little bit. But I always liked, like, way back in, I think it was NBA Live 03, they would say Mono Ginobili as Mono Ginobile. Ginobile! I always got a kick out of that. It's true the way they butcher Luka's last name. Imagine my last name. Yeah, for sure. We will make a trade this year. You have to believe that, even if it's for next year. Yeah, I think we'll be active in the deadline. The question is what moves they make. I think we absolutely have a need to make a move. I just don't know what the move is going to be. Let me see here. I'll take 3 more questions, and then I got to wrap this show. Appreciate you guys. I know I'm still having some frame drop right here. I'm doing the best I can with everything. So hopefully this is a better show for you guys. Hopefully you're digging this, and we'll be doing more of these for sure. Cowboys got 1 more regular season game and then at least 1 playoff game. So could be doubling down with some added Mavs content here very soon. I mean, I feel like Dirk is a goofy kid as well. Yeah, 50% your uncle who is really helpful and friendly and tries hard to be cool, and 50% goofy kid. Dirk's definitely got a very good goofy mentality. He's not afraid to laugh at himself, which is great. After many players from ex-Yugoslavia with the last name IC, I don't understand how people still have a hard time saying it correctly. Yep. Love that Mavs talk, regardless frames per second. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. But, yeah. Oh, here we go. If you cannot say his last name, it's not hard to say Luka, don't you think? I agree. From what I understand, I say it correct, Doncic. So I roll with that. But I'm driven crazy by people who do Mavs podcasts and still say it wrong. Because I'm like, I mean, just watch the Fox Sports Southwest broadcast. Mark Followell and those guys say it perfect. They say it right. And it's not even a hard way to say it right. It's not like you got 17 syllables to figure out. Like, it's all right. Not a question, but I really want to see Dragic and Doncic play. Dragic is, I think he's injured. I think he's indeterminable return with some injury I saw the other day. He plays in the East, so I'm not as intimately familiar with all the goings-on of what's going on with him. But I feel like I just saw that he's injured and out for an undetermined amount of time right now. I think they just put that as indefinitely. Mark Followell is legit. You say it perfectly. Sweet. Find it funny. Harper doesn't say it right. Oh, you're right. Harper does say it wrong. I was thinking of Jeff Skinwade and obviously Followell. But anyway, guys, I think that's going to do it for my time. If you wouldn't mind, please take a moment to hit like on this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, ring the notification bell. I'm going to be putting out more content here. Like I said, there's at least 2 Cowboy games left. And at that point, that'll go from 2 videos a week to 1 for Cowboys talk probably. And then all my available time after that will be pretty much Mavericks. So let's roll with it. But if you want to check out and represent the Dallas Prospect, you can check out the link above my shoulder here, represent.com/store/the-Dallas-Prospect. That is the official Dallas Prospect merch store. All our great designs are everything from our logo to our slogan everyone likes is on there. And hey, we rock Luka Legend as well. My custom-made Luka Legend design. All that's there as well. Check that out. And again, remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.